The world awakened on Easter Monday to devastating news from the Vatican. Pope Francis, the 266th spiritual head of the Catholic Church, had passed away at the age of 88, just hours after appearing before thousands of believers in St. Peter's Square for Easter Sunday celebrations. The pontiff, who had reshaped the papacy through humility and dedication to the disenfranchised, had returned, as Cardinal Farrell expressed, to the house of the Father. Today, we examine the Pope's final hours, the customs that accompany a pontifical death, and how Francis, true to his nature, modified many of these age-old traditions. No one could have anticipated such a sudden shift in circumstances. Just a day prior to his death, Pope Francis was present before tens of thousands of faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square for Easter Mass. Although clearly weakened and in a wheelchair, he offered blessings to the multitude, waving to supporters as he was wheeled around the square, pausing repeatedly to bless infants brought to him. His Easter address, recited by an aide while he watched, called for resolution in Gaza and Ukraine, denouncing the great hunger for violence present in global tensions. These would become his final public declarations to the world. A few hours later, at 7:35 a.m. local time on Easter Monday, Pope Francis passed away in the Vatican. The pontiff's condition had been deteriorating since February, when he was admitted for pneumonia in both lungs, a condition worsened by the earlier removal of part of one lung when he was a youth in Argentina. Despite his hardships, few expected his passing so soon after his recent appearance. Some reporters recalled seeing crowds rushing towards St. Peter's Square upon hearing the news, some visibly weeping in the streets of Rome. Jorge Mario Bergoglio's path to the papacy had been unconventional from its inception. Born in Buenos Aires to Italian immigrants escaping fascism, he had worked as a nightclub doorman and a chemical lab assistant before entering the Jesuit order. Rising through ecclesiastical ranks, he eventually became the first non-European pope in almost 1,300 years, the first from the Americas and the inaugural Jesuit to hold the papal throne. Throughout his 11-year papacy, Francis redefined the role of the pope. He eschewed the formal papal apartments, preferring instead to reside in the Vatican guest house. He washed the feet of incarcerated individuals, embraced those with disfigurements, and became a bold advocate for the impoverished, for displaced peoples, and for environmental protection. His final Easter message captured the essence of his mission, urging for liberty of belief, conscience, and speech, while pleading for serenity in war-torn areas and support for malnourished individuals longing for a peaceful future. The passing of a pontiff initiates a series of meticulously orchestrated protocols that have largely remained consistent for generations, until Francis. Traditionally, when a pope dies, the Camerlengo confirms the death by calling the pope's baptismal name 3 times. When no response is received, he formally declares the pope deceased. The pope's fisherman's ring is then obliterated, signifying the end of his papal reign. His body is customarily embalmed within 24 hours and placed on a raised structure known as a catafalque inside St. Peter's Basilica for the public to pay their respects. Historically, popes were interred within 3 nested coffins, cypress, lead, and oak, each symbolizing different aspects of the papal legacy. But Francis, faithful to his lifelong simplicity, altered these rituals. He sanctioned plans for a more modest funeral and interment. Rather than 3 coffins, he chose a plain wooden casket lined with zinc. He also dismissed the tradition of having his body displayed on a catafalque, opting instead to remain inside the coffin with its lid removed, allowing mourners to offer their farewells. Perhaps most significantly, Francis will become the first pope in over 100 years to be interred outside the Vatican. Rather than being laid to rest among his predecessors in the Vatican grotto beneath St. Peter's Basilica, he will be buried in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, one of Rome's 4 principal papal basilicas. This decision reflects Francis's deep reverence for Mary and his enduring intention to remain united with the people of Rome, even in passing. The basilica stands in the very heart of the city, accessible to anyone wishing to honor his memory. A fitting final resting place for a pope who persistently urged the Church to venture beyond its thresholds and into society's periphery. As the news of the Pope's passing expanded across the globe, tributes flowed in from every corner. World figures, regardless of their beliefs or political affiliations, acknowledged the profound effect Francis had on international issues. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen observed how he moved millions, far beyond the confines of Catholicism, with his modesty and his genuine love for the disadvantaged. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni shared, "I was blessed with his friendship," and noted that Francis had challenged humanity to summon the bravery needed to alter its path. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who had spoken with the Pope mere hours before his death, stated that his thoughts were with the countless Christians around the world who adored him. The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, recalled Francis as both a spiritual man and someone unmistakably human, witty, warm-hearted, and delightful company. In the days to come, the College of Cardinals will assemble in Rome to choose Francis's successor, a procedure known as the conclave. After a traditional 9-day mourning period, the cardinals will enter the Sistine Chapel, where they'll remain secluded until a new pontiff is elected by a 2/3 majority. When a decision is made, white smoke will rise from the chapel's chimney, and the iconic declaration, "Habemus Papam," "We have a pope," will resound throughout St. Peter's Square. The incoming pontiff will inherit the formidable responsibility of succeeding a pope who reshaped the role and remained, even in his final Easter address, a symbol of empathy, peace, and advocacy for the marginalized. Pope Francis's death during this Easter period, and in a Jubilee year, when multitudes of pilgrims are expected to journey to Rome in search of redemption, adds a deeper poignancy to an already sacred moment. The Pope, who once humbly proclaimed he came from the farthest reaches of the world, reshaped the Catholic institution and touched not only the hearts of followers, but also of those outside the faith. As the bells of St. Peter's toll in lamentation and worshippers gather to bid farewell, Francis leaves behind a legacy urging all of us, as he often preached, to build bridges instead of barricades and to remember the forgotten and the overlooked. For the man who adopted the name Francis, inspired by St. Francis of Assisi, the saint devoted to the destitute, his last pilgrimage stays true to the essence of humility and simplicity that marked his reign. In both his passing and his lifetime, Pope Francis remains a teacher, guiding us toward the core of belief and selfless service. Over the coming days, the world will watch as the College of Cardinals convenes to determine who will carry the torch forward, who will be chosen to continue Francis's groundbreaking legacy, and how will the Church transform further in today's swiftly evolving world. We'll be delivering exclusive insight into the papal funeral and the historic conclave that follows. This marks a transformative chapter, not only for Catholics, but for the broader global community. If you appreciated this reflection on Vatican customs and legacy, tap the subscribe icon now to remain informed during this extraordinary transition of leadership. Your likes and comments allow us to expand our reach and share this meaningful story with a wider audience. Take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in.